This program is made possible by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, and the Los Angeles County Office of Education.
I looked down and I saw mud just starting to ooze out of the ground. And then this terrible roar, and I screamed as loud as I could at my son. I said, "Get up the hill, get up the hill."
It brought a huge tidal wave of rocks, boulders, logs, and things like that.
The noise was so loud that they had to scream at each other. You know, the people that were scrambling for safety had to scream at each other to run.
The debris flow is one of the most awesome, terrifying, remarkable physical events that you can witness. If you think of a wall of water coming down a canyon, you're underestimating a debris flow. A debris flow is a type of flood in which the amount of sediment present in the water reaches very high levels, so that instead of being a normal flood with simply water flowing down a channel, we see a flow that looks a lot more like liquid concrete flowing down a channel floor. And because of that very high concentration of material, these kinds of flows, these debris flows, can carry rocks and boulders floating inside of them.
All this stuff's mixed together in kind of a mud slurry like cement coming out of a cement truck. The boulders crash into each other, they rub up against each other, and it's just devastating forces that are going on in the debris flows.
The urban-wildland interface in Los Angeles is in many ways a unique situation because we have a set of mountains of San Gabriel's which rise to 10,000 feet in direct and immediate proximity with a major metropolitan area. The rapid rise and close proximity to the community presents a really remarkable set of circumstances. The mountains are high. They also are going up very, very fast, and they're very steep. The average slope in these mountains is 68%. In many cases, it's 70, 80, 90%. What complicates it further is the material is largely unconsolidated. It's loose, so it's very mobile, highly dynamic, easy to put into motion. In many ways, one of the most unique situations in the world. Added to this, we have the fact of the rains. The rains in Los Angeles don't come throughout the year. They come in very intense rainfall events during a very narrow season. And during that time, we have high rainfall events on steep slopes with unconsolidated material. And so we can easily deliver large amounts of water and large amounts of sediment into the basins. But the situation becomes more intense, more dramatic, and more serious when we have fire.
Our local mountains are thickly covered with chaparral. The chaparral is a very thick, dense brush that burns every few years. When it burns to the ground.
After burn-offs, after forest fires, the areas that have been burnt are particularly prone to mud flows and debris flows with minor amounts of rain.
And perhaps even worse, during the fire we have the creation of what are referred to as hydrophobic soils, basically water-repellent soils that are formed because of gases released in the fire. Those gases that are released in the fire move into the ground and create a waterproof layer underground. So when it rains, the rain comes down, fills the soil to where that layer is, and then washes everything above it off down into the channels. The result is one of the most dynamic landscapes on Earth, set right beside a large urban area. And the net result are flash floods and debris flows not isolated out in the desert, but pouring right into large urban areas.
To protect people and property, Los Angeles County has one of the most sophisticated flood control systems in the world. Debris basins, which most of the time look like big, dry, empty lakes, catch runoff from flash floods and debris flows surging down the mountain canyons. Then, flood control channels quickly move floodwaters through the city, but mountain canyons above the debris basins and canyons with no debris basins are still very dangerous, especially after we've had big brush fires.
The firestorm of about 2 years ago has removed the vegetation on the hillsides. That vegetation is key for a couple of things. One is to slow down the energy of the rain droplets that fall. The next is to keep the soil together. Without that vegetation, the soil comes down off the slopes, just like it has that I'm standing on right now, covers in these stream beds, and this is where you have the debris flow situation set up once a thunderstorm or heavy rainfall event occurs. The soil is very loose due to the fire and the slip failures of the material. It's just prime for a debris flow. It's been a week. 4 inches of rain have fallen in 2 days. And with that, all this debris has come down the canyon. I'm sure glad I wasn't standing here when it happened.
Sandbags and deflection walls can help protect homes in areas where flash floods and debris flows threaten neighborhoods, but you can't protect against all flood and debris flow events, which is why it's wise not to build in floodplains and areas subject to debris flows. But no matter what measures you take, following a big brush fire, there's going to be an increased flood and debris flow danger for many years.
It's difficult to know how long an area after a fire is going to be able to produce a lot of debris flows and a lot of flash floods. But what we've learned so far suggests that the following 5 years are a time when great care has to be taken going into any area where there has been a fire. Even if the area has been regrown, if it looks as if the vegetation is back.
Sunshine in the lowlands does not always mean it's sunshining in the high country. Rain in the high country can cause flash floods to burst out of the canyons in the low country without any warning.
Too often people just simply check the forecast, which isn't really good enough. You need to know what your past weather has been also and look at what it's been, and you combine that with the forecast, and that's how you make a very safe decision on whether to pursue your outdoor activity.
Someone caught in a flash flood or a debris flow makes for a very difficult rescue.
Survivability in a debris flow, I think, would be absolutely zero. There's just no way. You have such tremendous volumes of water coming down with mud and heavy-duty branches and rock, and there's just no way.
Well, if you hear a noise when you're hiking in the mountains that doesn't seem to be natural, then you should take all precautions. If you're in a canyon, get to higher ground. If you're anywhere you can get out of the canyons, make sure you do so.
Don't ever try to outrun a debris flow down canyon, because it's going to catch you and roll right over you.
You do not have time to boulder hop. You do not have time to run down canyon.
You have to get out of the canyon and up the sidewalls as fast as you possibly can, because although the sound is traveling faster than the flow, it's not by very much, and the time you have to get out of the way is extremely limited.
This debris basin lies at the mouth of Bailey Canyon. It's about the size of 2 football fields and has the capacity to capture 130,000 cubic yards of debris, draining the water through its tower and into flood control channels downstream. Unfortunately, mud and rocks are not the only thing that can get swept down through our canyons and into debris basins. Last March, several groups of hikers were heading up into Bailey Canyon just as a powerful debris flow was about to start on a collision course downstream.
Well, it was Sunday afternoon, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We decided to take a hike. The day had been cloudy. No rain had fallen in Sierra Madre or in the lower reaches of the canyon all day, and I hadn't noticed any dark clouds or heavy rain showers higher up in the canyon. So we decided to take a walk and got to Bailey Canyon and decided to walk up Bailey Canyon.
Johnny was a single parent, a good father.
There was no sign the day I went hiking in Bailey Canyon that there was any danger outside of the danger that's always here. And I actually walked across the stream not knowing that it had rained up above and that water was about to come flooding down.
Sometimes he and Matthew used to like to come up here just to the waterfall, and they used to like to put their feet in the water and just spend some father and son time.
We got to within about 300 or 400 yards of the first waterfall when I heard a low rumbling noise, which wasn't a natural sound for the canyon. And my friend said, well, it's an airplane, or it's a thunder, or it might be an earthquake. And I said, it's none of these. We're out of here.
But Johnny and Matt, they would have no idea what that noise was. As a matter of fact, knowing my brother, he may have said, let's just go check it out, just not knowing.
And suddenly, an enormous wall of water came down in the stream about 15 or 20 feet from me. And it was 12 or 15 feet high, a great, big, muddy, plunging mass of water, really frightening.
Johnny would have never, ever endangered Matthew's life. Matthew was the light of his life. He never would have put that little boy in any danger whatsoever.
Officers responded to Bailey Canyon here on the report of a large debris flow coming down from the canyon. During the investigation, the rescue and the hikers, they found a vehicle that was left over in the parking lot, and contact with the family showed that it belonged to a gentleman and his son who were actually hiking in the canyon at that time.
We proceeded to search, and as we looked down into the canyon, we could see it was really a mess. Things were still moving. The catch basin was filling up. Huge logs were floating to the surface. We got down as close as we could in a search mode.
The father and son were not located. We then centered our search in the debris basin with the help of the search and rescue and the LA County Flood Control. And we had to start digging through about 15 feet of mud and debris.
They were having to sift through every piece of mud in that entire debris basin. Throughout the entire search, we sat on the ledge of the debris basin. We were going to sit there until they brought them out or down, wherever they were. We were not going to go home without them.
Approximately a week after we started, we located the father buried in the mud in the southwest portion of the debris basin. Approximately a week after that, we located his son, who was also buried in the southeast portion of the debris basin. They were both under about 10 feet of mud, and they were both deceased.
Matthew had just turned 9 years old. He was 9 years and 15 days old.
Working on this rescue and getting so close to the family, it was a pretty emotional experience. I have a son the same age as Matthew, the boy that was killed in this incident. And it's brought us closer together. Day after day, sometimes I thought, what if that had been me and my son there?
He was only 9 years old. Matthew was his name. If you ever met him, you'll never be the same. 'Cause Matthew had a special way of getting inside your heart. But never try to fool that child. He was way too smart. He was a little piece of heaven, and he always made us smile. And I thank God for the time we spent with that beautiful child. What a beautiful child. Life for us will never be the same. Oh, what a shame. What a crying shame. Matthew was his name. Oh Lord, Matthew was his name. Matthew was his name.